today we're going to be looking at the comments on my SpongeBob and science fiction video. So to give you a quick recap in case you haven't seen the video, it is about how SpongeBob basically writes episodes that are within the science fiction genre. So what I did in the video is I went through 8 episodes from the show, all the way from season 1 to a more recent season. I didn't do any from season 16, but I think it was season 15 or maybe 14 was PL 1413. I examined all these science fiction episodes. Obviously, the more modern ones didn't do as good of a job as the classic ones, and you get the idea. You know, you get the comparison of how science fiction was written well in the early seasons and how they kind of faltered later on. Hey, that's me. Oh, cool. So we'll read yours first from Neek the Nobody. Hey, I really love your videos, and they even help me out with my own storytelling. When I heard about that modern SpongeBob episode using both time travel and a time capsule gimmick, I was utterly shocked. I know they use references out the wazoo, but I wasn't expecting the time capsule gimmick to come back. I'll give you a nice heart there. And thank you for saying you love my videos and that they help you out with your own storytelling. I'm really glad. I always love hearing comments like this where people say that my videos help them as a writer. My videos are for people who are consumers and writers. So you don't have to be a writer to like my content. It could just tell you about how you should look at media, how to best engage with media. But my content is also probably a very useful tool for writers. So I am very happy to hear that someone who works on their own storytelling is helped by this. Something I said in the video is that in SB129, you know, we saw the future, but the SB129 future isn't like something that we couldn't return to. It's not something like Nosferatu, where the joke is so perfect that there's nothing else that you can do with it. You could return to the future. The concept of the future is big enough that you could do multiple episodes that talk about it. But PL 1413 it didn't do it. It didn't hit the mark. I find it interesting that the classic examples still feel like regular SpongeBob. It's not like, oh, that's the sci-fi episode. I think they found a very natural way to work it in, along with having it be more meaningful. That is true. Yeah, if you have like your SB129, like they feel like a SpongeBob episode. I wonder like if I could examine the way that works, how it achieves that. What is different about the modern ones? I would say that kind of applies, I guess, the most to like Binary Bottom and PL 1413 because they feel like they're outside of the regular SpongeBob. I think of the modern examples, I think Fun Size Friends, I think feels more like a SpongeBob episode there. Oh, Salmon kind of like me. Hey, look, we got the commenters in the chat. And I'm reading your comment. It's not like a Treehouse of Horror thing where it's a completely different atmosphere. True, that is true. A lot of these SpongeBob episodes, when they have sci-fi elements, it works within the show. Because sci-fi stuff just exists in SpongeBob. You know, you have Plankton, you have Sandy, you have Merman Man and Barnacle Boy. You know, like all these things, they just kind of exist within the world. But then you also have other episodes where like the Flying Dutchman exists or Ghosts or this. And they actually do a good job of keeping those things separate. Usually an episode that has science fiction stuff isn't going to have ghost stuff. And usually if they do, they mix them together pretty well. I think the most recent Halloween episode was kind of good at that, where there was a, like it took place in the Chum Bucket, but it had a lot of ghosts, and I think it had a good balance with that. I can't think of many other examples that work it in as well as classic SpongeBob. I think Fun Size Friends did a pretty good job with it. I think Fun Size Friends, mostly because it being a science fiction element, it wasn't like super larger than life. It wasn't a machine or anything. Like they just cut the thing off. I still count it as science fiction because like a tiny version of yourself is obviously not a thing that happens in reality with people. Apparently it does happen with sponges and sea stars. We're going to see a few comments that did correct me and did say that sponges and sea stars actually can regenerate entirely new, like separate living beings the way that they did in the episode, which I actually think was a really cool fun fact. So I think that's awesome. But we'll read the commenters who pointed that out because they pointed that out. It wasn't my fact. I said I didn't know. I also think it's interesting that Spongehenge is only remembered for its weird concept because everything else is so unremarkable. Yeah, that was what I was saying about Spongehenge, is that Spongehenge is such a surreal episode that we remember it for that. But we remember SB129 not just because it's a surreal episode, but because it's very funny. We remember future, you know, or all the bits alone, you know, we remember all that stuff that makes us laugh in SB129. And SB129 isn't super heavy on the jokes. Like there are definitely episodes that have more I guess you say jokes per minute. Like Algae is Always Greener, it's a science fiction episode. There's way more jokes in Algae is Always Greener than SB129. But SB129 has enough jokes. You know, Spongehenge I don't think has enough jokes. There's nothing really like it from that era, and I think it went a bit too far in a lot of aspects. I'm surprised there weren't more examples from the newer seasons with how prominent Sandy's science side has become. Well, the only reason I didn't have more examples, like I wasn't saying that it's every science fiction episode. That would have been a much longer video. I just wanted to talk about a general example from different kinds of science fiction too. Like I went on SB129 is time travel, Man Ray's a supervillain, Spongehenge is environmental, Inside Job is body horror. So like I wanted to kind of touch, Binary Bottom is robots. Like I wanted to touch on different science fiction elements. Like I almost did, well, we'll get to it because another commenter mentioned it. I hope I'll get to it. I'll point it out if it did in case I don't see their comment, but another commenter said that they'd hoped that I would cover the one where Man Ray takes over the world because they go back in the past. And the reason I didn't cover that one is because I covered both Man Ray in Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 3, and I covered time travel with SB129. So I already covered those concepts, and that was the reason I didn't talk about that episode, even though that is a great example of science fiction in SpongeBob. Hey, thank you for the super chat. Badass boy. Well, you are a badass for giving me a super chat. Hey, I like your videos. Great to watch during dinner. Keep it up. Thank you so much. Wow, that is so surreal, that thought, that like, because like I watch videos while I eat dinner. The fact that there are people out there that like sit and watch my videos while they eat dinner, like I've never actually like really thought of that. That means so much to me. Thank you so much. I think a big difference is the new episodes start with the idea of let's do a sci-fi thing. Yeah, that's like that was my main thesis at the end of the video, was it's concept first, story second in the ones that don't do as well, and it's story first, concept second. Which, to give some credit to Fun-Sized Friends, I would say is story first. Not to say Fun-Sized Friends is a perfect episode, but I did include it as an example of a modern SpongeBob episode that I thought was decent. I probably could have found a modern SpongeBob episode that I thought was really good that was science fiction. So I do want to acknowledge that the video itself and the way that it's presented might have a slight bit of bias, and I don't want to fully bias you against all of modern SpongeBob. I think the point I made was sound, and I think that is true about science fiction episodes, but I think if you look at specifically Smart Artificial Intelligence, which is actually an episode that criticizes AI, that is an example of a modern episode that is a science fiction concept. Well, I guess it's not science fiction anymore because it's real. It's kind of science fiction-y. That they did really well. It was totally story first. If one day you decide to cover something different than SpongeBob, could you cover the Penguins of Madagascar show? It's one of my favorite shows and was also made by Nick. I would love to see you do a deep dive on this series and the messages it brings. Ooh, that is a good question. I would be concerned about how culturally relevant the Penguins of Madagascar show is. I think I'd need to be a little bigger of a YouTuber. I think I would need a bigger core audience to do that, because that kind of video would be a very remember this wacky show. And that's a lot harder to do as like to market. Like a SpongeBob video, everyone knows SpongeBob. SpongeBob is very safe. And I love SpongeBob. SpongeBob's my favorite cartoon, you know, so it's not like I'm just doing it for the views. The reason that pretty much every video that's coming out at around this time, I don't think forever, is SpongeBob, is because I know that there is a built-in audience that likes SpongeBob. And what I'm trying to do is I'm using SpongeBob to build that audience. And then eventually as I build that audience, they're going to get to know me. So as they get to know me, I could go crazy stuff. I honestly, because I watched the Penguins of Madagascar when it aired back on Nickelodeon. So it's a good candidate. Honestly, I'd watch anything you put out. I think you're selling inspired. Well, thank you. I want to get to that point where I can put out more. Like, I do want to not only cover SpongeBob. I love SpongeBob. I love covering SpongeBob. But I would like to cover obscure stuff. YouTube is a business, you know, and it's a work of art. Like, what I put out is I take a lot of pride in my work. I do know how to work through the business side of it. And, but I really appreciate that. But Jackson, did you not come up with the story based on the concept, making your idea concept first, story second? Okay. So what this person is talking about, so at this timestamp, what I said here is I did a rewrite. I think that's my rewrite of PL 1413. And I said after I did my rewrite, I said, see, that's how you write science fiction, story first, concept second. And I said that was how it would have been written if they did my rewrite. And he says, did you not come up with a story based on the concept, making your idea concept first, story second? So this person is making a joke where they're talking about the order in which I came up with it. I mean, I didn't come up with the concept, the SpongeBob writers did. So that means that the concept was first, and then I wrote the story, came up with the story. I guess I didn't write the story, came up with the story. Obviously, they're making a joke because when I say story first, concept second, I mean the story is the primary focus and the concept is secondary, not literally you come up with the concept first story. But it's true. Logically, I have been logically defeated. By the laws of comedy, this person is correct. Can't really refute that. On that topic, I find SpongeBob and Patrick's prehistoric versions in SB129 to be a lot scarier than they are in UG. Oh, definitely. And that's on purpose, because in SB129, you're supposed to be afraid of them, because Squidward is the point of view character in SB129, so we have a character from the present to see through the eyes of, whereas in UG, we don't. UG takes place entirely in the past. No one is time traveling. So it has to set up the world through the eyes of someone who lives there. It UG almost has a similar problem to Binary Bottom, but I think UG does a little bit of a better job. I'd have to revisit UG. Whereas they're entirely comedic in UG and more or less have their act together, they definitely come off as more feral and unpredictable at SB129. Yeah, definitely very different vibes for very different episodes. Because I think they're not even supposed to be the same SpongeBob and Patrick. SpongeGar in UG is referred to as SpongeGar. SB129, the prehistoric SpongeBob and Patrick, do not have names. They are not named. And they don't speak, also. So it's funny because there was the meme where the prehistoric SpongeBob in SB129 goes like that. And that was like a meme for a long time. And they called it the SpongeGar meme. But it was incorrect because that's not SpongeGar. Or at least that's not known to be SpongeGar. I would see it that SB129 is actually further back in time than UG, that they're not the same period, and that the UG SpongeBob and Patrick are actually the descendants of the SpongeBob and Patrick from SB129. If they are even related at all, maybe they're just different sponges or something like that. There's also another prehistoric SpongeBob in an episode called Cave Dwelling Sponge. So there's a couple. So like, is that one even related to SpongeBob? Anyway, they still have their amusing moments for sure, but they're also just this generally uneasy vibe about them. You get the feeling they could fly off the handle at any moment and tear you to shreds if you make one wrong move. Yeah, it's a very unsettling scene. I bring this up because while SB129 definitely has a lot of hilarious moments, it's also one of the most unsettling episodes of the whole show, in my opinion. Oh, absolutely. Very unsettling episode. Between things like everything being chrome in the future, the past being creepy and eerie as it is, and Squidward being stuck in an endless light void, the entire episode has this generally off feeling about it that makes it somewhat disturbing, but in a genuinely interesting and entertaining way. And I must say, the rougher animation of season 1 only enhances it even more. If the episode were in any other season, it wouldn't work nearly as well. So true. SB129 only could have been a season 1 episode. That is so true. That is so true. UG is more educational, at least. It's going for something different than just story and gags. No, yeah, UG does teach a lesson. UG is about sharing. Like, they fight over the fire. You know, it has something to it. I'd have to revisit it to talk more about it. Your videos have made me realize how much the writers of modern SpongeBob nostalgia bait and fail. Yeah, they do that. They do that. Absolutely insane how they literally had everyone know the secret formula and didn't do anything with that. This is referring to how PL1413 revealed that 2,000 years in the future, everyone knows the secret formula. They focus on it for like 30 seconds. Plankton just goes, "Oh no." And they just kind of move on. They just kind of move past it. If I'm being real, I'm not really a fan of the this works, this doesn't dichotomy, because works is case-by-case subjective. Should be, does it better. See, I get what you're saying, but I gotta get people to click on the video, man. You know, like, I could word it a little nicer, you know, and you see my language when I make the videos. I am very careful with my language in the videos where I talk about subjectivity. But man, I gotta follow the click-through rate percentages. We'll discuss that in a bit, actually. I'm gonna talk about the thumbnail test. I'm actually gonna talk about my thumbnails a little later in this segment, so be ready for that. I am going to address that. I understand there's no way for them to make Plankton permanently stop going after the formula, but it would have been so cool to explore how Plankton's sole motivation isn't a sustainable source of fulfillment for him and to parallel him with Krabs and his quest for wealth, as he is probably also not doing well now that the Krusty Krab has gone out of business. True, they didn't even show future Mr. Krabs. If everyone knew the secret formula, that would be terrible for Mr. Krabs too. He would have no way of making money. Even if they didn't want to go down the route of Plankton reconciling with essentially his life purpose being flawed, which would have been so good. That would have been such a good approach, which they've done in plenty of episodes. There's so many episodes that tackle the idea of Plankton getting over wanting the formula, and they're all great, you know, like New Leaf. I mean, maybe they're not all great. I don't know every single one, but like New Leaf is kind of like that, where it's like, what if Plankton just gave up on the formula and like did something else with his life? Could have been a good person. He chooses not to. Anyway, both the episode Flower Plot and Plankton Movie did more interesting jobs at asking these questions, and neither of those stories are very sci-fi. Well, Plankton Movie was pretty sci-fi. I mean, the whole Karen thing was a giant robot, but I get what you mean. I've never seen Flower Plot. Yeah, Plankton Movie did address that, the whole obsession with the secret formula. I mean, that's why Karen went rogue. That was like the whole conflict, is you're too obsessed with the secret formula. Posting this comment just because I saw the live stream. Well, you're featured. Hi there. PL1413 genuinely feels like a sequel that was made just for the sake of it. I get that it was the 25th anniversary at the time it was released, but if you're going to make a sequel of such a beloved piece of media, at least have something to say with it. Was that because of the 25th anniversary? It seems like a weak celebration. Just one 11-minute episode. Also, I get Camp Coral was canceled, discontinued at the time, but shoving Sandy's design from the spinoff into the original show won't make me like it or the spinoff anymore. Oh, Camp Coral was canceled by the time PL1413 came out? I did not know that. It must have been they didn't know it was canceled when they put her in there, because it takes a long time to animate shows. So they probably were like, yeah, we're going to advertise the Camp Coral with the Sandy model. And then it didn't work out. My thoughts on Inside Job's ending. Okay, so this was referring to the part where I talked about how in Inside Job, it always bugged me when I watched the episode as a kid that Plankton turns into SpongeBob because he connects to SpongeBob's heart, but he turns into Patrick when he connects to Patrick's brain. But earlier in the episode, he connected to SpongeBob's brain and he didn't turn into SpongeBob. And I said that always bugged me because it seems like the rule should be you turn into someone if you connect to their heart, because the heart is the essence of who someone is, not their brain. This is someone who has some thoughts on that. Turning into SpongeBob requires connecting to his heart because SpongeBob is defined by his childlike wonder. Turning into Patrick requires connecting to his head, brain, because Patrick is defined by the inner machinations of his mind. Ooh, great source of, like, great quote. Great throwing in that quote there. That actually really helps this person's argument. Yeah, I see that. Like, that's fine to look at it that way. It still bugs me. It still does bug me. Like, I think it's just clunky. I think the whole thing is just clunky. I think if you're going to establish a rule about a heart and a brain and just kind of, it just feels like they weren't thinking about that. Like, I don't think the writers were thinking about it that way. I think they were just like, oh, okay, our ending is he turned into SpongeBob. Let's have him just turn into Patrick for like one last little haha. And that's what that communicates to me that the writers were doing. And that's kind of the issue I have with it. But I do get this perspective. And respect that they brought up inner machinations of his mind from Secret Box as a way to make their argument. Much respect to. So respect to this opinion, but it doesn't. The ending of it always bugs me that way. It's funny how Spongehenge lacked so little of a moral lesson. Fans went ahead and made a whole theory that it's meant to be some kind of poetic representation of Nickelodeon ruined the SpongeBob legacy. I think human fans talked about it long before the AI channel, but oh yeah. So they're referring to Sponge Truths with their Spongehenge video, which is one of their most Sponge Truths is a AI SpongeBob channel that stole actually from me, because it steals from everyone, because AI is incapable of creating something on its own. It just steals from others. So he's talking about how some kind of poetic representation of Nickelodeon ruining SpongeBob's legacy. I think human fans would have had to have talked about it before Sponge Truth stole it. That is true. I don't know if that's entirely true. I mean, it must be true. I mean, you could be like AI, come up with a theory and it would just give you a bad theory. Like, I think that is possible, even if not a lot of people talked about it. Oh yeah, shout out to Ave too. I kind of have to shout him out because he is the one who pointed out that Spongehenge video. So the only reason I'm even aware of it, and probably the only reason this person is aware of it, is because of Ave. I gotta give him credit for tearing down Sponge Truths, for introducing me to Sponge Truths when I found out that they stole my video. I never really thought of Spongehenge that way, that it's like a poetic representation of Nickelodeon ruining the SpongeBob legacy. No way. No way the writers are like, yeah, we're so sick of our job that we're going to write an episode that's about like destroying the thing that is our livelihood. That's not how professional writers think when it's their job. They don't want the show to end. Like, trust me, people who work on SpongeBob, the last thing that they want is for SpongeBob to end. It's their job. It's probably one of the most stable jobs in show business. A SpongeBob writer? Can you imagine, as someone who like has a writing degree, the level of job security that being a SpongeBob writer would be? There's no way that they'd be like, yeah, let's write episodes about how much we want the show to end. Why? So they can hope that they get another writing job? You know, most shows get canceled after like 2 seasons. SpongeBob is job security if you are a writer on that show. You know, and, you know, I get the other side of it. If you're like a passionate writer and you're writing SpongeBob and they're not letting you make good episodes, that might hurt a bit. That's certainly, I would definitely feel a little bit that way if I were a SpongeBob writer. You'd probably have to work with it. You know, I don't think if like they hired me as a SpongeBob writer, I'd go in and like fix the show. That's not how it works. Like that just is not, I would be delusional to think that. I'd get fired. I'd get fired. So I wouldn't act like that if I went on the show. I would know how to work with the other writers. I try to do my best to make the episodes as good as possible because that's your job. But yeah, I don't believe that. I believe that Spongehenge is just a very surreal episode idea that the writers just weren't given enough time to properly give it a deep story, and they had to get the episode out there. Binary Bottom made me realize what I enjoy about quote-unquote what-if episodes, like the one from Powerpuff Girls where the girls were teenagers and such. There was a lead into why we were being shown this, but with Binary Bottom, it was kind of just like, haha, what if everyone was robots, but that's it. It feels more like a fan fiction AAU plot than the plot of an episode of a TV show. Yep. Totally agree. This is referring to how I said that Binary Bottom was basically just an episode where it's like, what if SpongeBob was a robot? Like, it literally shows him, like, waking up and, like, eating cereal, but as a robot. It's like, that's not a story. It's not a story. Spongehenge, I think, would have made for a great SpongeBob finale, especially with its far future ending. I really don't agree. I don't think that... I think even, like, a better version of Spongehenge, like, not even just that Spongehenge isn't, like, the greatest episode. Like, even if a really well-written Spongehenge was the finale, I don't think that would have been a good finale at all. Like, because Spongehenge, the essence of Spongehenge is just its twist. The fact that SpongeBob makes all these things and they're remembered all these years in the future. And it becomes like Stonehenge. I don't think that's like an ending of the show. Like, I think an ending of the show would be like SpongeBob resigns from the Krusty Krab and starts his own restaurant, or SpongeBob takes over the Krusty Krab. SpongeBob gets his driver's license, like, or basically the ending of the first movie is SpongeBob becomes the manager of the Krusty Krab too. That would be an ending, you know. Obviously, I don't think the show should have ended at the first movie. One thing I don't understand about modern SpongeBob is why a lot of episodes are just filler. SB129 is such a fun episode. It's jam-packed with interesting moments, and the story is so well told. The episode feels way longer than 11 minutes because it's so engaging. You find yourself enjoying every second of it. It just goes to show how powerful a well-written story truly is. I talked about this in my Dying for Pie video and my Wet Painters video about how classic SpongeBob does not waste a second of its 11 minutes. And SB129 is another example of that, for sure. You changed the thumbnail. I think now's a good time to discuss this. Okay, so I usually get a comment like this every so often with change the thumbnail. So you might be curious about this. If you're someone who watches my videos like in the first day or so, you might notice that the thumbnails change. You might notice this with a lot of your favorite YouTubers recently, of which I hope I am one of, that the thumbnails are changing in the first couple of days. Now, this actually isn't the YouTuber actively choosing to change their thumbnail. That's actually not what's happening. What happens is there's something called a thumbnail test where you can go in, you can choose up to 3 thumbnails, and YouTube will actually give it like equally to your audience, and it will track which thumbnails do better than others. This is how I know that certain kinds of thumbnails do better than others. So if you say that my thumbnails are like repetitive or they're sensationalist, it's because I actually curated which ones work well, and I have a very good piece of evidence for this. Well, the first thing I'd actually like to talk about is, this was actually a comment from last week's video and last week's stream where I went over the comments, and this commenter was actually disappointed that I didn't include their comment, and this person's actually a pretty loyal commenter. I see them in my comment section a lot, so I wanted to actually shout out their comment. So if you're watching this, Meta5272, I remembered you. I remembered your comment. I want to go over it. And thanks for being a loyal commenter on the channel. Anyway, so this person, as well as this person on this video, asked the question, is there a reason you keep changing the thumbnail back and forth between Bubble Town and Bubble Buddy Returns? So it was Bubble Buddy video, and I had this thumbnail, and I had this thumbnail. This didn't work, and this works, this doesn't. You will notice that most of my videos are a variation of one of these kinds of thumbnails. And there's a reason for that I'm going to get to. So these thumbnails were actually very close together. Like, I want to say this was 49% and this was 51%. Like, it almost didn't matter which one I picked because these thumbnails worked. They were so close together that they basically got the same amount of clicks. They almost didn't matter. I ended up going with this one mostly because I have more videos that have the standard this didn't work. So I just want fewer of my videos to be the same kind of thumbnail. So this is the thumbnail test for the video that we're talking about right now. So as you can see, like the Bubble Buddy one, I had a this works, this doesn't, and a this didn't work. I usually have a variation of either one. Sometimes I can't do these because if I'm doing a video where I criticize one episode, I can't really do this works, this doesn't if I'm just like Laundro Madness. Was basically, I did compare it to older episodes, but I could really only talk about one episode in that one. So I couldn't do this works, this doesn't. But usually I do a this works, this doesn't. I tried this didn't work. But I'm allowed to test 3 thumbnails. So here's the standard this works, this doesn't. This didn't work. As you can see, this works, this doesn't actually did a fair bit better than just standard this didn't work. It was probably because the visuals on, as you can see, the let's zoom in. As you can see, it's a little blurry, but I did the screenshot of Binary Bottom. It's a little messy. The colors are kind of off. It's hard to kind of see the characters with all the stuff going on in the background. I can kind of see why this one's a little less eye-catching than like the likes of that, you know, as far as this didn't work thumbnails go. So I don't think it's a be-all, end-all. This works, this doesn't does not always do better than this didn't work. Sometimes this didn't work better. It really depends on the video. But the thumbnail that I would like to discuss the most is this one. Oh, by the way, I tested titles too. So the titles also changed, not the thumbnail. See how this one says, Modern SpongeBob forgot how to write science fiction? And this one says, Modern SpongeBob doesn't understand science fiction. I was just kind of trying different ways of wording it. And the reason that this one is forgot how is because I'm directly comparing it, whereas doesn't understand, this one is just looks like it's criticizing only a modern episode, so doesn't understand. Forgot how to would still have worked. Like either title would have worked. These could have been interchangeable. But this one is, I think, the most interesting test that I did this week. And it's this thumbnail, which I'm very proud of. This thumbnail. It's a very pretty one. Sci-Fi Sponge. And I have a little box of all because I covered 8 episodes. So this is 6 out of the 8 episodes. So I had a little screenshot of all the interesting parts of each episode. And I just put Sci-Fi Sponge. And I put how SpongeBob writes science fiction episodes. So a lot of people complain, all of my stuff is, oh, Modern SpongeBob forgot. Modern SpongeBob doesn't understand. This didn't work. This didn't work. Well, here's an academic thumbnail. Sci-Fi Sponge showing you the episodes I'm talking about. How SpongeBob writes science fiction episodes. Very academic. 22% watch time share, as opposed to 40% watch time share, 36% watch time share. This, this is a catastrophic difference compared to this. If I went, you know what? I like this thumbnail the most, which I do, by the way. I like this thumbnail the most. Personally. But if I did this thumbnail, if I said I want to do this thumbnail, I would get really hard to do the exact math. I would get fewer views on the video. I just would. It would just be less successful. And some of you who may have watched the video and may have enjoyed it might not have even been recommended it. Like maybe you're thinking like, oh, okay, well, like I'm a fan of yours. I'm going to watch your video anyway. You have to actually get recommended it in order to see it. You wouldn't know that I exist. It's not about, oh, like, yeah, with this, you're going to get the people who, you know, they want the rage bait, they want this. And you do, but you need some of those people in your audience to get that, you know? And I don't think that this compromises any of like my principles or anything. This isn't a bad thumbnail or anything. It's just playing the game. We could talk a little bit. Here's some other comparable thumbnail tests. This is from my bully video. As you can see, bad lesson, good lesson, very similar to this works, this doesn't. This didn't work. And then bad lesson. was a little more of a experimental one. Again, the experimental one did the worst. And then How Comedy Can Hide a Bad Message. How Comedy Can Hide a Bad Message. This is a little more of an academic title, and it did a little bit better, 33.8 compared to 35.2. Not as bad, but the one that said Modern SpongeBob taught this lesson better, bad lesson, good lesson, these things are what did it, you know? Here's the last one I'll show. SpongeBob and Patrick Timeline Twist Up. This one I was very safe. I just went insulting. They all are insulting. I didn't even try another one. I knew what kind of this one was going to do, and this one was just better by a small percentage. This is one of my most popular recent videos, by the way. I had the sci-fi sponge thumbnail the first time I saw the vid. When I saw it got replaced, I really thought, dang, he made it more modern, hating for views, shame, this explains it better. Yeah, thank you for hearing it out. And I know a lot of people aren't going to know that. Like, how many people are actually going to watch this video, this segment, and get that explanation? But it's just... the numbers don't lie, you know, like you gotta, you know, and again, like there is a limit to that, you know, I'm not going to clickbait you. I'm not going to be insincere. I'm not like, there are things that I will not sacrifice. I would rather get less views than be sponge truths and use AI and put 3 garbage videos out a week because they get more views. Like I won't do that to you. I would not feel like, because I do this because this is what I feel fulfilled doing. I love making videos. I love talking about the arts. Like, it's something I'm very passionate about. The thing with the sci-fi sponge thumbnail is that it just doesn't show well on a small screen, and clearly the title being less sensational hurts it too. Yeah, it probably doesn't. Like on a phone screen, I could totally get that. That is something else I consider too. That is true. Like maybe it would have done better if it was 3 segments instead of 6. So maybe in a future video that's similar to this one, I'll try something like that, but with 3 segments, and let's see if it's different. I'm guessing as the thumbnails get more complicated, less people watch it because it requires more attention and is less visual, even though it's probably better. Yeah, what I have done is I have just accepted that this is what the thumbnails are. I made my peace with it. They're this. These are my thumbnails, and that's okay. Because you know why? Because my videos are exactly what I want them to be. So that makes me happy. I have not had to compromise on my videos 1 iota. Well, if you know so much about writing SpongeBob episodes, you should try to become a writer there. I would take that job in a second. If they were actually like, and by the way, I would not fix the show. If tomorrow I got a call from Paramount and was like, hey, we want you to be a SpongeBob writer. First of all, I would take it in a second. I'd be like, when you want me to start? I would be there immediately. I would not fix the show. I would try my best. I mean, if they made me the showrunner, even then, you know, because you have to deal with the executives. There's so much more that is wrong with the show than just some writers don't fully know what they're doing. And I'm sure plenty of them are. And I bet if I was a writer on the show, I think I'd be able to improve it. I have a master's degree in creative writing. Like, I'm not blowing smoke. Like, I do know how to write shows. I do think that I would be able to work within that. I don't think they should put me in charge of the show. But if they gave me like an assistant job or something like that, I would in a second, I would work for the show. Imagine on my resume. Oh my goodness. If anyone from Paramount is watching, I would take the job. And I would be nice, by the way. I'm very critical in my videos, all right? It's my job to be critical in the videos. I would be so polite in the workplace. I would not be like this. I would not be like a cartoon reviewer in the workplace if it was my coworker who was writing it. I mean, if it were my place to criticize the story, if it were my place to give notes, you know, I would give them. You know, if they wanted my opinion, I would give my opinion, but I'm not going to be out of line. While a lot of these are fantastic analysis videos for the series and how to craft meaningful entertainment, the SpongeBob crew doesn't give a damn about the writing and storytelling anymore, and make that blatantly obvious. It's just a 9 to 5 thing for the team to get something animated for Nick for its zombie series. I think that's a very reductive way to look at the problem. I really think that's not entirely true. I think it's a bit more nuanced than that. I think there is an element of what you're talking about here, but I can't imagine that these people whose job it is to write the show are like cynical about it. In fact, I think that they're probably all very grateful to have consistent work, first of all. And I think they do try their best. If I had to guess why some modern SpongeBob episodes aren't good, it's a combination of maybe there are some writers on it that just don't have the knowledge. They don't have that deep storytelling bones, you know, that the stuff that I talk about with like lessons and structure and pacing, and this moment should happen here and this. I think there are probably people on the writing staff that don't constantly think about those things. They might be aware of them. They're definitely all experienced writers. You have to be a very experienced writer to work on the show. There's no way that they're just pulling people off the street. So I do think that there are some people who do lack some skills, but I think the biggest problem is probably the time. Like even this person says it's a 9 to 5 thing. I bet that's what it is. It's a 9 to 5 thing. If you work for SpongeBob, you're in the writers union, you're in the WGA. If you're in the writers union, I think you're in the WGA. I actually wouldn't say that for sure, but most likely it's a network show. I would think you're in the WGA. And if you're in the WGA, you are on the clock. When you're writing the show, you're on the clock. You're getting paid your rate or your salary or anything like that. And you're writing collaboratively. The people who write SpongeBob episodes, they don't go home to their apartments or their houses and sit and write the episode. That's not how it works. They write it in the room together. You don't write it by yourself and bring it in. That would be a complete destruction of the actual thing. Maybe they put together the episode and the main writer goes in and writes the script. It depends on the actual writing staff. There's so many different ways it could be done. And I don't know the exact process, but these things are. And I think that the main thing that's going on is that the writers, they just aren't going to put them on the clock for that long for them to come up with a deep story for an episode like PL 1413. And sometimes with the amount of time they give them, they can make an episode like Pardon My Wand or SpongeBob Trash Pants, 2 modern episodes that had great stories. Or maybe sometimes it's like, okay, like Pigskin Pearl. Pigskin Pearl had a good story. Maybe the network was like, okay, like that's our special. That's a 22-minute episode. It's going to be the last episode of the show for a while. We're going to be on hiatus for a little bit until the show comes back. Let's have them put more hours on it. Let's make sure there's a story in this one. But then an episode like Curse of the Weredoodle, they're like, who cares? Like, just make it the Weredoodle, do whatever, let's not give them the hours to actually make it a story because people are going to watch it anyway because it's just a regular 11-minute episode. It's in the middle of the season and people are going to watch it anyway because it has Doodle Bob in it. And by the way, I don't know that for sure. That's just my guess in how these things work, that there's some version of that going on and that's what's actually happening. I don't even think your level of intellect is warranted for corporate slapjacks and for the episodes made from about season 10 for now. Well, I appreciate the compliment. I appreciate the compliment. Judging by someone who understands YouTube numbers, my time in trying to become a YouTuber and trying to move up and get more subscribers and become bigger, my time is best spent talking about SpongeBob episodes for my career. So I appreciate your concern for me and like that, like my intellect and where I should use it. I appreciate that. I believe that my time is best spent making these videos because it is the thing that is bearing the most fruit in my career. And also, I don't make these videos to try and change the show. I mean, like, cool, that'd be great if someone from Paramount watched my videos and are like, oh, that's what we're doing wrong. Like, sure. I don't think they are. That doesn't sound realistic. But my videos are about teaching consumers what kind of writing and what kind of narratives they should look for, and is about teaching writers how they can become aspiring writers. Those are the 2 groups that my videos are for. Consumers who want to watch better media and want to know what to look for, and writers who want to create better media. Those are the 2 most important groups of people to me. Those are the 2 most important groups of people that I care about, that I want to serve as a creator. And I feel that I am doing that best by making these videos about modern SpongeBob that get a lot of attention and get a lot of views. Oh yeah, fun fact, missing C-star limbs can grow new bodies. So this is someone just saying that in Fun Size Friends. It actually is realistic that I was saying that it might have been stretching the laws of nature, that like even though starfish can regenerate, can they create a new body? And I said it didn't matter, by the way. If that wasn't true in biology, if biologically a sea star limb couldn't grow a whole new sea star, that wouldn't matter. The story would still be fine either way. But it's a nice fun fact that they actually can do it. Another great theme they could have done with Binary Bottom is to tackle the repetition of SpongeBob. You could see it with Mr. Krabs' bot having a little path on the floor that he slides along. Oh yeah, that's a good point. Here the robots go, doing their normal tasks, repeating the same jokes, going around the same circles. How one could go about the ending, the theme is more dependent on your level of optimism and philosophy. I would want SpongeBob to break free, pushing his limits and finding what made SpongeBob such an enjoyable show. but the premise is prime for meta commentary on the sterilization of repetitive cartoon contains that live. I totally agree. I totally agree with that. Great video. There is one giant figure 8 in the room that needs to be brought up. Season 8, the most underrated season of SpongeBob, is filled to the brim with the most sci-fi episodes in the series, and they're all underrated bangers. I'd massively recommend checking them out. Frozen Face-Off, Mooncation, Mermaid Man Begins, Plankton's Good Eye, Barnacle Face, House Sitting for Scandy, Bubble Troubles, Krabby Patty That Ate Bikini Bottom, Fiasco, Planet of the Jellyfish, Karen 2.0, Face Freeze, and It's a SpongeBob Christmas. Why don't I go through my opinions on all these? Frozen Face-Off was a little weak. I wasn't a big fan. I thought it was very concept first. Frozen Face-Off. I felt it was a little weak in the story. Mooncation, haven't seen. Mermaid Man Begins. Saw when I was a lot younger. Haven't seen it in a long time. I guess I thought positively of it. Plankton's Good Eye. Have heard good things about. I think I probably saw it when I was younger. Barnacle Face. No idea. Never seen it. House Sitting for Sandy. Haven't seen it. Bubble Troubles. Haven't seen it. Krabby Patty That Ate Bikini Bottom. Recently saw. Had a lesson. Had a story. Fiasco, haven't seen it. Planet of the Jellyfish, a long time ago. Karen 2.0, a long time ago. Face Freeze, I don't think I've seen it or haven't seen it in a long time. It's a SpongeBob Christmas, I don't really. So a lot of these examples, I don't think I like it. I either haven't seen them or I don't fully agree, but that's okay. That's okay. I'm glad this person enjoys these sci-fi episodes. They all dabble in sci-fi, and most of them have really good stories. Frozen Face-Off, Karen 2.0, Plankton's Good Eye, Planet, blah, 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 have really engaging plots on top of their sci-fi elements. I do like Krabby Patty That Ate Bikini Bottom. You even saw It's a SpongeBob Christmas and enjoyed that. Wait. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so wrong. It's a SpongeBob Christmas is... I mixed it up. It's a SpongeBob Christmas is the stop motion one. I was thinking of SpongeBob's Road to Christmas. So It's a SpongeBob Christmas, I do agree, is a good episode. I'm glad they pointed that out. You even saw It's a SpongeBob Christmas and enjoyed that. Season 8 and 9 are real improvements over the previous and subsequent season. Season 9 It Came from Goo Goo, and Seance Schmeance is great sci-fi episodes. Seance Schmeance, seances are more fantasy than sci-fi. I don't know this episode, but a seance is not a sci-fi concept. A seance is a fantasy concept. Fantasy and sci-fi are similar in that they use larger-than-life concepts to tell their stories, but there are some differences. Oh, you weren't making a joke? This is the person who disappointed you didn't include Back to the Past. That's when Man Ray goes back in time. That one just missed the list. Sorry to disappoint you. Yep, that's the one. And no worries. Your analysis are always super interesting regardless. Oh, thank you, guy. Why, thank you. I'll keep the episode in mind in case I can discuss in a future video. Yeah, I'll think about that episode too. If I do like a Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy video or one about just villains in general. If I were to theorize, it might be part of his regeneration. Also, to answer your question about cloning, they sort of can do that as how they reproduce. How they reproduce, I guess that's sponges, right? Do starfish reproduce like that? Or do starfish, I don't know how starfish reproduce. I think sponges are like that, yeah. Oh, but why should there be an explanation? What purpose could that serve in enhancing the story? So this is actually, I guess, a mistake on my part. This is referring, there was a part where I talked about Spongehenge and I said, there's no explanation for the winds. They're just kind of there. And I think because I had a generally negative perception of Spongehenge and because of the tone in which I said that, I think this person thinks that that was a criticism. It wasn't, and I get why they thought that, like thinking back on it. I didn't intend it as a criticism. I think the fact that the winds aren't explained adds to the eerie nature of the episode, so I don't think that's a criticism, but this person thought that it was. So I actually did say I was praising the episode for its eeriness. I don't think the winds need an explanation, but unfortunate that just sometimes that happens where it's hard to communicate. You know, communication is very difficult. I try to be very precise in the way I communicate, and it's not always perfect, you know. Even I make mistakes on it. If Spongehenge wasn't so focused on bleakness, it wouldn't be Spongehenge. So this person liked it. It still could have had better jokes and struck a balance like how SB129 did. I see what you mean, but I think at that point it would lose what makes Spongehenge special. SB129 feels like a completely different kind of episode. So I'm glad this person enjoyed it. I do agree, Spongehenge does have a good sense of bleakness, for sure. I thought the concept of a supervillain is a superhero trope, not a sci-fi trope. So I referred to Man Ray and the concept of a supervillain as sci-fi. Superhero and science fiction have a lot of overlap. Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy fit the definition of science fiction-based superheroes. Yeah, I don't know if I would say specifically that superheroes are always science fiction. Because you think of like Thor. Thor is more of a fantasy superhero. But he's still a superhero. Or like Batman. Like Batman and the Joker, neither of them have superpowers. So that technically wouldn't even be science fiction. because there's no, I mean, I guess, is Batman always science fiction because Batman has like the suit and just the way that he is? Or is Batman just like regular action, like James Bond? Like, is Batman even science fiction? I know Batman's science fiction if he's fighting a villain who has powers, you know, or even like, you know, like Dr. Freeze or whatever. You know, like that would be a science fiction because Dr. Freeze is clearly a science fiction villain. Batman has sci-fi elements. Yeah, it has sci-fi elements, but like what I mean is there could probably be a version of Batman. Like if you had a Batman movie and it was just Batman versus the Joker, that alone doesn't have to be sci-fi because there could be, all of that could just exist within current technological reality. But I guess Batman, like Batmobile, Batarang, like all that stuff, that's very sci-fi, you know, at least sci-fi feeling. But I would say superhero movies, most superhero movies are science fiction. That is a fact. So the concept of the supervillain is inherently sci-fi, but I suppose wouldn't have to be sci-fi. But it wasn't, but also to put it another way too, Man Ray is a sci-fi supervillain. Like, absolutely. You know, Man Ray as the glove and that is a sci-fi episode. The things that happen, the tickle belt, him being frozen, that's all science fiction. So it is objectively a science fiction episode. But I do appreciate the comment for the broader discussion of superhero. Batman isn't always sci-fi. Originally, he was really just a detective in a bat costume. The Batman is a good example of non-sci-fi Batman. Yeah, exactly. Like, Batman inherently does not have to be sci-fi. I know he usually is. Like, Batman, it's DC, especially if he crosses over Justice League, you know. And the Batmobile feels pretty Batman. But yeah, Batman is a detective. That's like the main thing that Batman is. So he doesn't have to inherently be a science fiction. Yeah, it could be just action or mystery. I guess it's mystery, because Batman's a detective. I saw you read my comment a bit ago. I did notice that Sans Schmance isn't a sci-fi episode. It's more underrated. An actual season 9 episode would be Copy Bob Ditto Pants. Interesting. Yeah. I understand, because fantasy and sci-fi, a lot of overlap. And sometimes they go together. I just said like Thor, you know, like the Avengers is Iron Man is science fiction. Thor is fantasy. They're in the same movie and it's fine. You know, like there are times where you don't want to cross genres. You know, I talked about this when I talked about SpongeBob versus the Big One, having the Flying Dutchman in it, and they just did not work together. So there's plenty of overlap, but yeah, there is a bit of a difference. The difference is just a little more that science fiction may be a thing that like can't exist, you know, or like doesn't exist. Like if you have like a wormhole is science fiction. Our understanding of science doesn't allow for wormholes. You know, we don't know if they are, but there's like an explanation within science for a wormhole in the movie. It might not be correct with real world science. It probably isn't, but fantasy doesn't try to explain it. They say it's magic. It exists outside of the natural. Ghosts, gods, magic wands, you know, these things are not science fiction, they're fantasy because they don't have a scientific explanation for them. And there's important distinction there because you have to follow different rules depending on if it's science fiction or fantasy. But they both accomplish the same thing, using a larger than life concept to tell a story. Oh, hey, this person's in the chat. And I replied to you. So, hello to your comment. Hello to the chat. Oh no, we got a nervous face. Oh, don't worry. No, don't worry. Oh, that's me. Yeah, it's you. This video kind of makes me realize I really hate the belief that seemingly every episode needs a character arc and a lesson learned. Ooh, you have a very contrarian opinion to the channel. Why do you feel that way? So I did respond to you and you did reply back. So I'm actually glad that I replied to you first before we got to this, because I'm glad I got your elaboration. Because I wanted to elaborate, because I am very tough on this take, just so you know. This is actually, like, this attitude, my entire channel, the main thing that I do is debunk kind of this. Not exactly this, because I can tell by your rebuttal I don't know. It just feels annoying to me since a lot of things can be great with no arc or lesson, although the want for one isn't invalid. It's just I feel. Okay, so like your reasoning for wanting that is flawed. I will say it's flawed, but it's not like there are people who want things to not have like character arcs in a way that I think is like almost nefarious, and I wouldn't say that about you. Like I think that there are people who genuinely like they want things to not have stories and lessons because they believe bad things. And if movies and TV shows have deep stories and lessons, the bad things that they believe in will be fought against. I don't think that's you at all. Just saying. But that is one reason that people believe in it. And the reason that I believe the opposite, that I believe that every episode needs a character arc and a lesson learned, it needs to have a theme. Actually, well, I'll get to character arc in a second. But it seems that what you are bothered about is that you think it feels annoying to me, since a lot of things can be great with no arc or lesson. Okay, so I'll address this first. I'll address the easiest. There's a very easy debunk to this argument, and I hope you'll agree with me. Let me know if you do. The things that I am saying about having a lesson, I'm just gonna say lesson, not arc. I'll get to arc in a second, but a lesson or themes is another one important. I believe that every piece of narrative media, movies, books, TV shows, anything that is a narrative story, stories by the campfire, everything that is that should have themes and should have lessons. Yeah, I also could have worded better. It's okay. It's totally okay. Look, you're not a professional debater. It's totally okay. That's why I'm talking to you in a very, I'm talking to you on a different way. Like if someone typed up like an essay, like a specifically worded thing, I get you're in a comment section. Like you don't need to write a senior thesis paper. It's fine. It's totally okay. And it's okay. You expressed your thing well. And I'm glad that you're able to do the conversation. So having themes and lessons will never make a narrative worse. No movie, TV show, book, or story of any kind has ever in history been worse because it doesn't have a lesson or a theme. It's never happened. So that is not at risk. So all I'm saying is that we should have both. So I think what you're saying is that things can be great with no arc or lesson. So what you're saying is that what I think you're saying with this is that there are modern SpongeBob episodes that you enjoy. Right? Like let's say, I don't know if you did for sure, but let's just say hypothetically, and you can tell me if you did or you didn't, you liked Welcome to Binary Bottom. You enjoyed Welcome to Binary Bottom. You watched it the first time, you enjoyed it. You maybe even revisited it every so often. Maybe you rewatched the show. You watched Welcome to Binary Bottom. You got enjoyment out of that. That is fine. That is so okay that you got enjoyment out of Welcome to Binary Bottom, because there are things to enjoy about it. It's well animated. It's funny. The voice actors give good performances. That's totally fine. That's fine. Oh, you didn't like that one? Oh, that's funny. Okay, so you didn't actually like it. So for the record, this person did not like Welcome to Binary Bottom. But let's just say a hypothetical. There probably is an episode like that or a movie like that you feel that way. So there are two main reasons that I kind of, as someone else saying, I kind of enjoy Binary Bottom. And that's fine. I just said all of the reasons why you could enjoy Binary Bottom. It doesn't reflect badly on you to enjoy any episode of SpongeBob. There is not a single episode of SpongeBob that has ever been made that reflects badly on you as a person to enjoy. Never. It doesn't reflect badly on your intellect. It doesn't reflect badly on you morally, which obviously not. But I would never want someone to feel ashamed for liking a SpongeBob episode. Any single one. Exactly what this person said. A different person, not the person I'm responding to in the comment, said, I kind of enjoyed Binary Bottom. It still sucks it doesn't have an actual story, though. That's so great. We're on the same page here, guys. We're on the same page. Like, we think the same things. I'm just a YouTuber. I have to be strong in my opinions in the way that I present them. But we're thinking the same thing, guys. We want them to have better stories. And there's two reasons that every piece of narrative media should be expected to have better stories. And by the way, I'm saying this because if everyone, and obviously it would never be everyone, but if ideally everyone, more realistically, more people expected better out of their narrative media, we would have better narrative media. They would do this. If it was expected that, oh man, we better have a lesson and a theme in our episode, or we are not going to do well, everyone would put it in. All of these professional writers would do it. The network would go out of their way to pay the writers more time. They would give them more hours to write better episodes, and then every episode of a season, or at least 9 out of 10 episodes of a season, would be good. And that'd be great. We'd get better products and the writers would get paid more. That's awesome. I love that outcome. So there's 2 reasons that you should want that. 2 reasons. The first is it's more entertaining. It is more entertaining. It is more entertaining. We all know that. It's more focused. You're going to have better jokes. The performances are going to shine more. All of the things that you like about any episode of SpongeBob is enhanced when it has stories and lessons. That's the secret formula. Hey, that's the secret formula, but we get to know it. We get to know the secret formula of writing, unlike Plankton, who doesn't get to know the secret formula of Krabby Patties. And the second reason is a more philosophical reason. It's because the social function of the arts is to broaden people's perspectives, is to make us think about things, to and even like things we disagree with. Like, even if a show, the lesson of an episode has a perspective that you disagree with, at least it challenges you to think about it. But most of the time, any movie and TV show, at least any prolific one, is going to have a pretty agreeable message. Usually it's be good to one another, be respectful of one another. I mean, for some reason today, those are, I guess, controversial. The idea of equality is, I suppose, controversial for some reason. But any movie and TV show is pro-equality, that's all it leads into. And when you actually discuss these things, just discussion, good faith discussion, there is such a thing as bad faith discussion. But movies and TV shows, narrative media, is almost always good faith discussion because of the nature of it. It has to be authentic. And this leads to enough good faith discussion, that we lead ourselves into a more thoughtful and more empathetic population. We are already in a better place because of the arts, because of Shakespeare, because of Greek plays, and more modern examples, because of SpongeBob. How many of us, we were kids when we watched SpongeBob. You learned so much from SpongeBob, from those classic episodes. Fools in April, teaching you how to play respectful pranks on people. Don't be like Squidward. It teaches you how to take joy in your life. Like, the things that SpongeBob does for people is not just about making them laugh. I mean, making them laugh gets them to watch it, but the message is always there. So when you argue against the idea that every narrative should be expected to have that, on the grounds that it's a little annoying, you are arguing against that. You don't know that you are, and you don't know that you are, and I think the reason that you find it annoying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is just because, one, it maybe implies that you should feel ashamed about liking things that don't have that, which I would never want to imply, and I never want someone to feel that way, so you don't need to worry about that. And also, it's just hard to understand. And sometimes, and it is, by the way, this is high academic stuff. Like, this, like, it's okay. Like, this is, like, I'm educated in this subject. I have a master's degree in creative writing. So it's like this is why I know this stuff. And I want to pass on as much of that knowledge to people who may not be professional writers, to have that. But yeah, just, it probably feels annoying because it's complicated, but I would encourage you, to just think on that. So I'm glad you left the comment. I'm glad you shared with me how you felt. You shared how you felt very respectfully. Some people will leave comments like this and they will be like so rude. They'll be like, it's a kid's show, bro. And I let them have it. I do. You probably seen me. I can be mean in my comment section. And I should be, by the way, to people who are bad faith. You were not bad faith, though. You were very nice. And hey, I'm so glad you're here. I kind of agree with the sentiment. You do agree or don't agree? Don't agree with what sentiment? Which sentiment do you not agree with? I'm going to address, I'll wait for you to formulate a response to that, but I'm going to address character arc. So every episode needs a character arc. It kind of does, but it kind of doesn't. So don't. All right, let me know why you don't. I want to hear your thoughts. So every episode, every narrative needs a character arc. Every narrative needs an opportunity for a character arc. So for example, Idiot Box. In Idiot Box, Squidward's arc in Idiot Box is learning that imagination is something that is inside of you. Squidward does not do that in the episode. At the end of the episode, he thinks for a second, was it really their imagination? He's about to complete that arc. And he goes, no. He says no. And he goes, really? I'm going to start the car and it's going to be a race car. And then it does the race car sounds, but the race car sounds were real. It was a garbage truck. So Squidward didn't believe. He rejected the character arc. He refused to change, so he got punished. Now, the lesson of the narrative is the same whether or not Squidward accepted or did not accept the character arc. Whether he accepted or did not accept the change, it's still the same, because the character arc that it is telling you to believe is the same. Whether Imagination Box or whether Idiot Box ended with Squidward going, yeah, I believe in imagination now, or him rejecting imagination, getting punished for it, it actually almost doesn't matter because it's still communicating the arc. The arc is still there, but a character can reject their arc. They can be the same. They just have to get punished for it. The reason, though, that Idiot Box needed to have Squidward have I guess you could call it a reverse character arc or a rejected character arc. I called it a reverse character arc in this video, but I think rejected character arc is probably a better phrase. If Squidward was to have, Squidward needed to have a rejected character arc, one, because it's a funnier ending, and funnier endings are endings that stand out more. So the lesson is better portrayed with a rejected character arc, and the writers knew that. And another reason is because SpongeBob is an episodic show. Squidward can't fully change. It would be too much of a change for Squidward to take in one episode. Squidward does change in plenty of episodes, like the end of Fools in April, where he admits that he likes SpongeBob. But that one didn't really go too far. So I just feel that narrative shouldn't need to have a theme or arc. I like arcs and lessons, but I don't feel every narrative needs one. Both can be super great. No, but here's the thing. So you don't lose anything. You're acting like those things are a binary, like they're mutually exclusive. They are not. They are not. And I do think every narrative needs one for the social good reason that they need one. To argue against it is to argue against the idea of a more thoughtful and empathetic population, because you're not arguing against something being more entertaining, because it's objectively true that things are more entertaining when they have themes and lessons. So the only thing that you'd be arguing against is something being having social good. You're arguing against the social good at that point. So that's why I say it needs one. If you could still get entertainment out of it, like that's fine. But I will character regression about what I said about the character arc. Character regression is different. Squidward didn't really regress in Idiot Box. He more so didn't change. A character regression would be a character who's like, take, for example, Zuko in Season 2 of Avatar The Last Airbender. Zuko starts Season 2 of Avatar The Last Airbender being morally corrupted, wanting to capture the Avatar, this and that. He learns throughout it that there's more to life than that. You know, he frees Appa. He starts to think differently. And then at the end of Season 2, he chooses to betray Iroh and become accepted by the Fire Nation. That is an example of a character regression. He was in a place, he went to a good place, and he went back to the bad place. Squidward never went to a good place. I guess you could kind of call it a character regression because for a second, he almost believed it, but I would say it's closer more so to a character rejection of the character arc, a character arc rejection. I'm trying to find a good name for it. As far as I remember, I think of it like a reason for scenes and the funny is just the spice on top or something. Are you saying that all stories are is a lesson and theme, but the actual stuff like the comedy and the characters and the visuals, all of that stuff is the spice that goes on top. Because if you're saying that, I 100% agree with you. That is what a thing is, but I won't put words in your mouth if that's not what you meant. Wouldn't regression be a negative character arc? Yeah, it's still an arc. Like what I'm talking about is a character refusing to change at all and being punished for it. But what it's communicating is they could have changed. So I think not every story needs a character arc. Every story needs a potential for a character arc. So like I criticize the Super Mario Brothers movie because I think that Mario doesn't have a real character arc. He gets stronger, but he doesn't become a different person. But that's not the same. It's not like he could have become a better person, but he chose not to. He was just already a good person and is the same person at the beginning of the movie than the end, which is why I criticize that as an arc. I like static characters. Well, there can be static characters. Every narrative has a static character of some kind. It just shouldn't be the protagonist. It could be the protagonist, but you gotta really do a lot. That's pretty much all of them. I think we just got through all the comments here.
Hey, thank you so much for watching. If you want to see the full stream videos, click on the right. Or if you want to see my scripted content, click on the left. See you next time.